or a bad thing for freethinkers and skeptics. I define the new atheist movement to be something like the following. The new trend of removing respect from religion in conversations, you know, the sort of attitude that one finds in a Richard Dawkins or a Christopher Hitchens, where anti-theism starts to pop its head up a bit more. Do you think that sort of thing is ultimately good or bad, and why? I mean, I've heard quite a few people say it's a good thing that this new attitude has surfaced, because religion doesn't deserve any respect. And yet I've heard other atheists say, no, it's something we really need to stay away from. We should just stick to tearing down their arguments and keep the attitude in check. So where do you stand?
Okay. That's, okay, new atheist movement. I have difficulty with that because it suggests that we have this kind of brotherhood thing, and I really don't feel like I'm part of a brotherhood. That's just a definition that just basically classifies me as not being without theism, so to speak, or I mean, I've got a video as to why I'm an atheist, and I don't follow these movement things. But let's cut the question down to what you said later on, that it's basically a disrespect for religion, or maybe even a hostility. No, there are people. There's a lot of people out there who have a history of theism and their life with theism, and I guess I've been wanting to do a video on that, and I think I should probably try. But there's reasons why people get angry with theism, and that is probably a key element to this kind of disrespect or hostility towards theism that history has, and the sense they feel they've been betrayed, because there's a certain sense that theism is a falsehood that's put out there. It's a lie, and they feel like they've been lied to. And there's also the issue of being accused of not having any ethics whatsoever. There's numerous things that come together to make for angry atheists, which is a question you might want to ask about. Is it a good thing? Yeah, because in a lot of cases, a lot of times people are fearful of touching theism because it has such a large following, and there are militant theists. I don't know if you want to acknowledge that or not, and people can be people know there are militant theists. Some of them call them fundamentalists, but people feel justified in taking actions that I don't necessarily think or I agree with or find justifiable. So people are getting upset about that. That's part of the anger thing, combined with the sense that there is a need to combat what people's history. As children growing up and being exposed to these things, I find it's quite detrimental, and it's one of the reasons why my question number 1 came along to the answer that I came up with. And well, again, a lot of atheists, because there was such a minority, a lot of them would be put down and dismissed outright before, and now they're starting to get some modicum of credibility or even respect. And now that respect is having a backlash towards the theists, and the theists are getting upset and thinking that they should be accorded more respect. Well, how much respect did the atheists get, and how much do they get now? And then ask that question again. I have had anger for a long time. I think a lot of people have, and I think it's just surfacing. I think that's basically it. Does religion deserve respect, or does it not deserve respect, or should there be anti-theism? I don't really have that much respect for religion per se, but I try not to be hostile towards. I used to be a lot more hostile. I'm a little bit more forgiving and understanding in certain respects, and I don't necessarily attack theism the way that I may have at one time, because I've met plenty of theists that were decent folk, and I think there can be a genuineness to the reasons they go about it. So in that sense, okay, theism, Okay, individuals. Religion as a group, I don't like. It's just like atheism, I don't like as a group. I don't like theism as a group. As an individual trying to find a way, that's fine. As long as you respect other individuals too and their choices. But as a group, I do have a tendency to be somewhat hostile because it tends to fall towards leaders who the followers will give latitude to interpretations, and it gets kind of scary when people wield the kind of power, the kind of blind following that can entail. Don't know what you think of that.
Fourth, what sorts of decisions are affected by your atheism? I really like this question. I like my own question. Wow, that's not the height of narcissism. Okay, let me unpack what I mean here. Are there decisions that you make in your life, aside from the obvious denial of theism, that are a direct result of your views on the non-existence or lack of evidence for God? So, for example, political choices, or moral choices, or economic choices. Is there anything that atheism has impacted in such a way that you can look back and say, you know, I don't think I would hold this other view if I wasn't an atheist?
As an atheist, how would I make a decision based in certain areas that would be different were I a theist? Right? The thing about being an atheist now, there was a time when I was desperate to be a theist as a child growing up because there were certain impacts and influence on my life that made it necessary in a certain respect. Because when you're growing up, you're wholly hopeful and dependent on what you might call a world that makes sense, a worldview that makes sense, and a world that responds in some consistent fashion that you can depend on. So your parents you depend on wholly, and when it comes down to, if your parents are teaching you certain things, you hope that you can depend on that information. And the twisting of the mind that can go on in order to try to make things fit into that view is incredible. So it's hard for me to say that I was a theist at one time. It may be that I just wanted to believe because my parents had been teaching me, and the influences in my life were trying to teach me that theism was the way to be. And there were too many things that were at cross purposes that made it seem implausible. So what kind of things, I guess I always wanted to be a good person, so, you know, again, defining good would be a tough one, but I just wanted to be something that I could like, I guess. But what choices would be different? I mean, you're saying, what are my perspectives as an atheist influencing in my actions? And since I can't really say I was a devout theist except for trying to be, I mean, this idea of accepting something without proof, it was a very difficult thing. There are things out there that you accept because, but they have proof. I mean, gravity and solids. You know, you can prove that by banging your head on it. This hurts when you bang your head on it. You fall off, step off of some height, and you're going to fall. Gravity's going to bring you down to earth. So there's a lot of things out there that we grow up with that are teaching us. Nature is teaching us all these things as we go along, and a lot of stuff that was offered to us in theism was not proving to have any kind of real substance to it. So there was a lot of fear in that to say that my source of life was deceiving me. That's a very scary position to be in, from that position of dependence on your parents.